Doesn't have her mic on.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is an absolute honor for me to rise in this House to speak on behalf of the residents of my riding of Davenport on C-12, the Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act. Other than the very legitimate concerns around COVID-19, which has been the top issue for my constituents over the past year, I could tell you the main other thing that they've written to me about has been around climate action and green recovery. They want to know, and they want to make sure that, and they've been really pushing me, they want to make sure that our federal government will not only meet our Paris Accord targets and achieve net zero by 2050, but that as we are coming out of COVID-19, as we're restarting our economy, that we continue to commit ourselves to a green recovery and a carbon neutral future. So, Madam Speaker, as we look at this bill, it's important to understand its scope and what it actually sets out to do. And we also need to consider in the context of the things our government is already doing to lower emissions and the many challenges that are still in front of us. As well, it's important to recognize that it is only one part, albeit an extraordinarily key part of our government's climate action strategy. For years, I know many others have urged our government to present a clear, credible, transparent climate plan to show Canadians exactly how our government intends to meet our Paris Accord targets. That's been a very direct ask by many environmentalists and just many in general from the Davenport community. So I will tell you, Madam Speaker, I was absolutely delighted when in mid-December, our Minister of Environment and Climate Change presented a plan. It was put into a report called A Healthy Environment and Healthy Economy. And it basically outlined a number of policy changes that is going to get us way past our original 2030 targets. So I know it lays out a number of things in terms of our plan to cut emissions across a number of different sectors in our homes and transportation systems, industry and natural spaces. I know that it talks a lot about our price and pollution and our plan to increase it and provide incentives around that, as well as corresponding how we're going to be helping to increase the climate rebates that Canadian families are receiving to cover their costs and to invest in reducing emissions. Anyways, I could go on, but I will tell you that to me, I'm very proud of this report. I'm very proud that it presents a plan, and I really encourage everybody to read it. And what Bill C-12 does is that it ensures that we are going to ensure that we are meeting our targets. So what exactly does it do? The bill, as it's written right now, is it sets out that national targets and plans for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in Canada be put in place with the objective of obtaining net zero emissions by 2050. The Act requires the tabling and publication of targets and plans and progress reports and assessment reports. The bill also stipulates the content of milestone plans. And in the event of a failure to achieve a target, the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change have to publicly explain why this is. There's also a number of other mechanisms around accountability for the Commissioner of Environment of Sustainable Development, and also to be supported by the Office of the Auditor General. And so I'm really pleased that we've laid this all out, and I think it's important for us to do that, and I'm really pleased that that's included in Bill C-12. I'll also mention that our first target that we have is 2030, but there's also subsequent milestone years in 2035, 2040, 2045. And that targets have to be set and an emissions reductions plan established at least 5 years in advance of each of the subsequent milestone year. So that's basically it in a nutshell, Madam Speaker, and I know we've heard a lot about that over the last few speeches. I also want to mention, Madam Speaker, and I think it's important for us to sort of articulate that we have spent, since we were elected in late 2015, we have done a lot to protect our environment and to lower our emissions. We've put a price on pollution. We've invested over $60 billion to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help Canadians adapt to climate change, primarily through investments in clean technology and infrastructure. We have also started taking some urgent action to ban single-use plastics. I know we're well on our way to protecting 25% of our land and water by 2025. And as my very honourable colleague, the member for Beaches East York, mentioned to the House late last year when he was speaking on this bill as well. He indicated that our government's actions between 2016 and 2019 have already put Canada on the path to reducing 2030 emissions by 25%, or 227 million tons, which is more than any Canadian government in history has done to date. The Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act, Madam Speaker, is an important step forward, and I know that it has been lauded by a number of groups, including groups like Greenpeace, who's called it an important step towards holding governments accountable for meeting science-based climate targets. And I was also pleased to see that the Business Council of Canada also lauded it, saying that clear guidelines, a predictable policy framework, and a supportive investment environment will help businesses get to net zero faster. Now, while Bill C-12 is an excellent bill, Davenport residents have been calling me for the last little while to indicate, well, there might be some ways that we could improve on Bill C-12. And so I've had a number of meetings with amazing groups called Just Earth, Fridays for Future, Lead Now, the Seniors for Climate Action Now. So a number of really amazing groups who have been talking to me, and they have really advocated for us to really have a stronger emissions target by 2030 of at least 45%, with frequent progress reports over the next 10 years. I know that they really want to make sure that that as strong as possible the accountability mechanisms and the support for offices like the Environment Commissioner and the Office of the Auditor General is locked in place. And I know they've also indicated that they would love to see that the Advisory Council and their recommendations are fully public and fully transparent. And those are just among some of the very important changes or recommendations that they have suggested that could improve Bill C-12. And I want to make sure I put that on the record. The other thing I want to mention to you, Madam Speaker, because it's so important for people in my riding of Davenport is, and while it's not directly relevant to what's in front of us, the elimination of fossil fuel subsidies, and to do so as quickly as possible. I know that this is something that was articulated to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. He did a virtual town hall with my riding of Davenport residents, and he's very clearly indicated to us that he is working on this, and I really am so grateful to him and his unbelievable team for their hard work. I also want to mention, Madam Speaker, that in our fall economic statement, we've also reaffirmed quite a few investments that's going to ensure that we do reduce our emissions, that we do get ourselves on track to exceeding our 2030 targets and meeting our net zero target of 2050. We talked about a historic $14.9 billion investment of federal funding in public transit. We talked about a huge investment of almost $3 billion to help homeowners make their homes more energy efficient. We've talked about planting over 2 billion trees to fight climate change, and I know we made an announcement around that via our Minister of Natural Resources. I know that we have committed to over almost $1 billion to restore degraded ecosystems and protect wildlife and improve land and resource management practices. So this, among many other things, Madam Speaker. And I had mentioned to you earlier that Davenport residents unequivocally have indicated to me that this continues to be something that's top of mind for them. And I will want to say to you, and I'll read out something from Natalie Zed, who says the following: I understand that decisions are being made in cabinet right now and in the Liberal government about how to invest over $100 billion in a green recovery and beyond. I'm writing with everything I have to ask you to do whatever you can for the approval of that investment. COVID is a minor problem compared to what climate change is already bringing, and we have only seen the beginning of it. We're in the midst of a civilization crisis and collapse, and it's super important for us to be focused on this. So, Madam Speaker, I want to close by saying how proud I am of the Healthy Environment and Healthy Economy Plan, and I'm also very proud of this bill that, if passed, will set out the legally binding 5-year milestones and set in stone our emissions reductions plan. In the end, climate change is not a Liberal or Conservative or Green Party or Bloc Québécois or NDP issue. It's a federal issue, and all parties across all levels of government must do their part to urgently tackle climate change. Our future and our current and future generations are depending on us to take urgent action now. We can't wait any longer. No more words, Madam Speaker. It's all about action now. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present this bill. I urge all of my colleagues in this House to move for the speedy passage of this bill. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grasslands. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the colleague for her speech. Now, we all know that part of the Liberals' plan for climate change to tackle it is the clean fuel standard. In the Gazette edition for December 19th of last year, in the household and gender-based analysis impact study that was done, it says, and I'm quoting from the Gazette here, that it is expected that increases in transportation, fuel, and home heating expenses would disproportionately impact lower and middle-income households. It also goes on to say that single mothers are more likely to live in lower-income households and may be more vulnerable to energy poverty and adverse impacts from increases to transportation and home heating prices. So I'm just wondering to the member, through you, Madam Chair, is she explaining to single mothers in her riding that they're going to drive the costs for them up by introducing measures like the clean fuel standard, but also the carbon tax that goes up to $170 a ton by 2030, as she indicated?